Okay, so this is a video about compression, another really important effect, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit conceptually, and then I'm going to show you some different examples of it on guitar, bass, things like that, okay? Alright, so compression is, take the idea of sound as a waveform between loud and soft, okay? So loud and soft is what you call the dynamic range. So here's your, here's nothing, bzzzt, and then here's the sound of a snare drum, bzzzt, okay? So that's dynamic range, okay? Now, compression takes a photograph of the dynamic range of a sound and squishes it to make it smaller, and then, depending on what you want to do with it, can put it all up near the top, or you can put it down, or whatever. But what it functions as is bringing the distance between the sound of loud and soft together. Now, this is going to be essential when you go to record a demo. Good compression is essential when you're doing a live performance. The use of compression in your rehearsal space is also can come really in handy, because if you start to get used to using compression, then you'll start to kind of know what it is and know what it sounds like, and then you can talk to sound man, and when you talk to your guy who does your demo, you can talk about that a little bit too. You know, modern music is absolutely entangled in the use of compression. So for example, what compression will do with drums is, like I said before, bring the transients from loud and soft together. So next time you put any music on, listen to the snare drum, and it goes bong, but it sounds a lot, the actual explosive sound of it is a lot smaller than it would, say, if I went over to the drum kit right here, I went bam, and you all know that if you've ever been into a rehearsal room, go bam and it's like, oh my god, that transient is really loud. That can't be translated on small speakers on you know, on car stereos and things, so all the sound is compressed. And not only that, is with compressed sound, it tells your ear that what you're doing is consistent and controlled, because it will all be in this nice little sweet band of dynamic range. And when we look at trying to get a sound in our rehearsal room and looking for our spot, compression can be a really helpful thing too, because if you've got your sound kind of in this nice little area, then you can navigate that area, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that way. You can do it without compression in the rehearsal room, but it's just such a wonderful tool in your arsenal of tricks to make yourself really good and sound great. So what I'm going to do is give an example of a guitar with a compressor on it. And just as an example, you've got your guitar playing, and if you've got a compressor on it and you want to play some chords and then play some single note sounds, well, a compressor will actually bring the distance between the amount of sound you're making together, so it will actually sound kind of seamless when you play them, even though if you're playing a chord, the actual sound you're putting out is louder than just this dinky little one-note riff, you know what I mean? And this is the tricks and of trades of good guitar players, you know. And as another example, as a bass guitar player, they all use compression, because you want that solid thumping bass there constantly. You know, I could talk about examples of all sorts of things. One of the most incredibly intense examples of the use of compression, if you go to listen to Dave Matthews' band, the album that he did with Glenn Ballard called Crash, I think. No, that's not it. What's the one with the space between? You know that song? Glenn Ballard just crushed everything into this smaller space and made it so deeply thick that it was a really different sound. So if you want to start training your ears to listen to compression, that's a good place to start, because that's the max, you know. Dance music, maximum compression, you know. It just sort of sits in this space and pumps. Boom, 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 boom. And they do that because it's used to maximize volume, ultimately. So you can crank it up. Because if you've got an uncompressed signal, right, then the inconsistencies of your, say it's the snare, like it'll be kind of loud this time and really loud the next time. So if you have it really loud in speakers, what the audience will see and hear and feel is loud, not so loud, loud, oh my God, I'm getting beaten up by this kind of chaotic sound and it's fatiguing to my hairstyle. As you can tell, I've got my wings, I'm going to fly away. So if you put a little compression on it, then all of a sudden you've got the drums sitting there constantly and they've got their spot. And then you've got your guitars, and this is how live mixers mix sound. They always use compression so that it kind of makes it so that there's this consistency, and then you can turn the whole thing up louder than you could before, and it'll be clean and it'll sound sweet. Whereas before you can be loud, but if you're uncompressed, it just sounds a little more chaotic. And one thing you're going to have to start thinking about is how to make yourself sound professional, as professional as you can. So I'm going to do a guitar video, and we'll look at compression on a guitar, and I'll also just talk about some of the rudimentary things when you're setting up your amp and the sound and stuff like that. Okay, so that's the next video. Alright, compression.